So before I get into the video, I do want to start off with an apology. I'm sorry if there's going to be any background noise or any sort of any interference with this video. There are like kids playing over there. There's construction going on behind me. There's a ton of other stuff happening. It's a very nice day outside, so people are out and about. So if any of that happens, I do apologize. But with that out of the way, I do want to talk to you guys today about Twitch's new policy changes. Yesterday they put out a bunch of new changes, and actually I don't really think that there's that many new changes, and that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and also kind of parse this stuff out and we'll look at it together. So the reason I'm making this video is because a lot of the people that have talked about this, I feel, have looked at it in either a very cursory or like, a flippant manner. They're like, oh, this is great, or oh, this is sucks, or whatever. And people haven't really looked at it in a more, I don't know, like analytical manner. And I want to look at what they've said here. I brought my tablet out to the tree house here, and so we're all set up like a real journalist. And so I want to read it out to you guys and talk to you about what some of the changes are. But before I do that, I kind of want to express like why I wanted to make this video. A lot of the people who have talked about this issue, as I said, are either uneducated or they have an agenda in mind, right? This is a person that obviously doesn't want this to happen because it will affect them, right? And for me personally, as far as I know, from what I've heard, everything that I do is fine, so I don't really have a really big horse in this race, but I do want to talk about it. And before I do any of that, I also want to say what my agenda is. Everybody has an agenda, and I think it's better to just be upfront with it. I think it's very important to have the free marketplace of ideas, that concept, and I feel like through the free marketplace of ideas, bad ideas will get squashed and good ideas will flourish. And because of that, I'm generally not a fan of censorship at all. I think that if somebody has a really stupid idea, I want them to shout it from all the rooftops, from a mountaintop, and then everybody will be able to hear him and be like, wow, this guy's a complete dumbass, and I think that's how things progress and things move forward. I think censoring things and making certain opinions and certain words and everything like that against the rules is generally a bad idea. With anything, however, there is a lot of caveats to that. And what the Twitch guidelines that they try to implement, they're trying to implement now, are supposed to curb is not necessarily partly hate speech, etc., right? But more so also harassment. I think harassment is the main issue that Twitch really wants to deal with. And that's a big difference between Twitch and YouTube, is that YouTube has a much more toxic community where people are making diss videos about each other, and people actually have a monetary incentive to create trouble and to, in some ways, maybe demean or slander other people on the website. Twitch has always had a very, very strong rule against saying bad stuff about other broadcasters. There are people that I don't like on Twitch, and you guys don't even know who they are. So even people that I disagree with, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like them. It just means that I disagree with them on something. So a lot of those people I kind of keep to myself, and I don't really have this problem at all. However, other people do. Everybody has to have their opinion and put their opinion out there. So one of the big changes that Twitch is going to be making is that they're going to be cracking down on harassment and calling people different things. And this is probably one of the first main controversial things that they said, is the words that you can't call people. And one of them was that you weren't supposed to call girls cam girls, right? And I find that this is not really, I feel like a lot of these changes are redundant. I think that in general, these have already been rules. This isn't anything new. If like, let's say, I'm not going to even name anybody. Let's say there's a streamer named Amanda, right? And I say Amanda is a cam girl, right? And I'm obviously meaning in a derogatory manner. Even before they made these changes, that would still fall under harassment of another broadcaster. So there's no real change. If you say that all girls on the website are cam girls or whores or something like that, that's also already against the rules, because that's what Tyler Trainwrecks got banned for back in November. So I don't really see what these rules are going to change, and I think that's the core focus that I want to make here, is that many of these rules are purely redundancies. You are already not supposed to call specific streamers any sort of a derogatory term, and if you were making generalizations like that, it would have already fallen under the rules that were existing for years. So I think that people getting angry about it is, I can understand why. They feel like those girls are getting preferential treatment. I think to an extent, yeah, maybe a little bit, and I'll talk about that later on. But more so, it's not about girls or any specific group, but I feel like Twitch does absolutely run the risk of making these changes and trying to appeal to people that are a little bit more sensitive. And by doing that, they're not really going to attract more sensitive people into the website, but they're going to alienate the more abrasive people from the website, and it will result in a net loss and ultimately a negative impact on Twitch. And that is kind of what I'm worried about. Twitch is, I love Twitch. I think that Twitch is in general a very good website, and they make mistakes. Every website makes mistakes, but in general, I think they've tried to be pretty even-handed with things. So anyway, the whole cam girl thing, as I said, it's purely redundant from my perspective after reading the TOS numbers of times, and I don't see how that's going to add any different type of content into what's acceptable and what's not. So let's go ahead and let's look at anti-harassment and hateful conduct policy. I'm gonna put my hood on because I feel like it. Okay. I guess I should have brought my drink out here. I'm actually getting thirsty. I want everyone to feel welcome on Twitch, and we're strengthening our stance on harassment and hate. This is what they say on their post here. First, content we deem to be hateful will result in an immediate, indefinite suspension. Hate simply has no place on Twitch community. So, content we deem to be hateful. Now, that I think is a very interesting way to look at it, because we deem, right? And everything in here is based off of context and nuance. And I think that the entire success or failure of these changes is going to be based off of the way that they moderate them, right? And there are a number of people that you're not supposed to like make fun of, and protected groups, etc. So I want to go ahead and read off some of those protected groups right now for you guys, so you can have an idea why this could be confusing for people. So hateful conduct is any content that promotes, encourages, or facilitates discrimination, denigration, objectification, harassment, or violence based on the following characteristics and is strictly prohibited. Race, ethnicity or national origin, religion, sex, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, disability or mental condition, physical characteristics, or veteran status. I don't really know, it kind of came out of nowhere. So whenever we look at these things here, if you call somebody a stupid kid, technically, this is is this harassment to call some kid that you're playing with or some kid on Twitch a stupid kid? Would this technically fall under hateful conduct? Now personally, I think that would be ridiculous. But if you want to look at it from a very, very technical standpoint, I think that it would qualify as that. If you want to call something gay, and you're not saying that's like homosexual, I'm not saying like saying something is gay is a good thing, but I also don't think it's something that you should be permanently banned for, right? And I think that's the big difference. Whenever I discuss a lot of this stuff, I'm not necessarily agreeing or saying that these things that people say are good, but I think there's a very big gray area between saying that they're good and wanting to permanently ban people for them. And that's what really kind of worries me. I don't want to see people get their channels axed because they said something that was politically incorrect or just kind of rude, right? I think that it makes a lot of other people who want to move on and be part of the website, it makes them very iffy about doing that. And an example of this is YouTube. It's one of the big reasons why Twitch is successful is YouTube's decline in being able to accurately handle community requests and deal with channels fairly and equitably. A lot of people moved from YouTube over to Twitch because YouTube was not doing a very good job making them feel secure in what they were doing as their, I guess, what you would call career. They were getting strikes on their channel from people copyright claiming their videos that they made completely on their own. They were getting people harassing them. There was nothing that they could do. And basically, people didn't feel secure on YouTube, and they moved over to Twitch because Twitch made them feel more secure and was easier to understand. And they felt like Twitch was invested in them, and so they invested themselves in Twitch. Whenever there are so many different rules that are just instant, go to jail, don't pass go type rules where you're just immediately axed, that's going to make more and more people less likely to go to Twitch because they're worried that because all of these decisions here are dealt with by a moderation team on a case-by-case basis, it will only take a few decisions that are a little bit weird for people to start to become very, very uncomfortable and worry that their channel might be next if they say something that's off color. And that will get people to stop saying it, you're right, at least in the intermedium. But what the worst thing that could happen here is it could also get people to stop using the website. Example for this is in WoW. Uh, since they have like all these different rules for like what you can say and what you can't say, and like the silencing system now, what I usually do is I just don't talk at all. Like I don't communicate at all with people in public channels. I just don't talk to them. I just look at them and that's it. Because I don't want to have somebody like try to spam report me or something like that, because I know that's how the system works. And that's not really a very good position that you want to have a game or a community built around, that's supposed to, or a community like a mindset that you want to have for a community that's supposed to be built around communication and interaction. And I feel like it's going to drive a lot of people, especially if Twitch ever has a competitor that doesn't have these types of rules. It could potentially drive a lot of them over to that competitor because they feel more secure. And I don't want to have that happen. I like Twitch a lot. And that's why I'm very concerned with the potential implementation of these rules. I think that fundamentally, the rules are fine. Don't harass people on the website. That's completely fine. But I think there's a very, very big difference between calling a map gay in like a game and saying that you want to kill all faggots or something like that. There's a very, very big difference. And where one of them is very clearly, yeah, you should probably get banned for saying that. I mean, sure. Or at least like sternly talked to. Don't say that on the website. But saying that a map is gay isn't really that bad. And the way that Twitch evaluates these different decisions is going to be what will define if people will respect them or not. And I think it's very important that they don't just go with banning anybody who says something mean. I generally don't like the idea of deplatforming people or anything like that. If somebody is stupid, as I said before, I want everybody to see them and know about it. So anyway, a lot of this hateful conduct, etc., is it's pretty obvious stuff. Harassment, if we look at like what the harassment rules are, bullying, such as name calling and attempts to embarrass someone with intent to harm. How do you really define intent to harm? Are you talking about physical harm? Are you talking about emotional harm? If emotional duress is considered, what level of emotional duress is enough to make it to where they will action somebody? And that's different for each different individual. And so there's going to have to be baselines that they're going to have to be okay with or not okay with. And next one, abusing someone based on their employer, organization, or other affiliation. I think that like all of these things are like, they're very, very broad, right? And my personal opinion with a lot of these changes is that nothing's going to really happen. I think these changes are more or less fan service, and they're more or less crowd service. And I think that, you'll see a few people get axed, but probably those are just going to be bad actors that would have been axed anyway. For the most part, I don't really think this is more of an extension or a expansion of the rules, but more or less a clarification of it. And that's something that I do want to address. Sharing content, basically sharing content to make somebody look bad, recording somebody against their will. I guess that's more of like an IRL thing. I actually really agree with that. It's a very good idea. I don't like the idea of like going around and recording people in public against their will. I think it's just very intrusive. And inciting or encouraging others to harass, of course. Browsing or raiding channels with malicious intent. How do you define malicious intent? Unwanted sexual advances, sexual harassment, or sexual bullying. That kind of goes to the cam girl thing, and that's, again, basically already in the rules. So I'll go back to the Twitch harassment thing, or the Twitch community guidelines, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The rules will go into effect on Monday, February 19th. We'll continue to be operating under the former guidelines. You must remove clips and VODs that violate the new guidelines before they go into effect. I feel like this is kind of a mistake for them to handle it this way. So what they're saying is that you have to remove the clips and VODs that violate these rules, but they're applying the rules retroactively to all of the clips and VODs before the implementation of these rules. I think it's kind of unrealistic to expect people to go through, maybe like 100 or something like that, 5 or 6 hour streams to make sure they said nothing wrong. The way that I think they should handle this is that if they find something in a VOD or a clip that is breaking the rules, that wasn't breaking the rules then, because you used to be able to call people like fags and like all kinds of stuff, back like way back in the day on like I think it was like Justin TV at that point. And so are you going to take a clip of that and then hold that against somebody now? I don't really think that would be fair in order to actually like action their account. I think the intelligent middle ground there is to just delete the clips or delete the VODs if they're if now they're breaking the TOS, right? So that's my opinion. I think they should just delete them. I don't think people should be punished for something that they did just based off of like a. If they want people to do that, they should just delete everybody's VODs, right? I just think it's very silly for them to do that and expect everybody to go through their VODs or delete them. I just don't think it's not. It's also it's ultimately not friendly to the community. It doesn't really make the community better. It doesn't make the website better. And I think that the reason that a lot of these changes are happening is because of advertising. Advertising is what's driven a lot of these decisions. Twitch makes a lot of money through advertising, and because of that, their primary goal is to keep the advertisers happy. And this is something that's happened before on other platforms where the platform is built around the community and then advertisers get involved and then the community has to adhere to what the advertisers want and then the advertisers alienate the community. And that's something that I'm very worried about and I don't want to see happen. But again, I want to reiterate this, I'll probably say this a couple more times. All of this is completely based on the way that Twitch admins handle reports one by one, right? And if they're looking at intent, if they're looking at context, etc., I don't think that this is going to be any sort of change whatsoever, and I don't think that there's going to be anything wrong with it, for the most part, right? There are a few things that I do want to talk about outside of this too, but for the most part, as long as they're evaluating them, within their context and giving people the benefit of the doubt and all of that, I don't think it's really going to be that big of a problem. Coming months, we'll be revisiting our enforcement policies for both partners and non-partners, appeals process, IRL guidelines, and preventing user-to-user harassment. Let's see, where are we at here? There's something else also that I want to talk about. Where is it here? Sexual content. Yeah, this is another big element. Twitch is an open global community with users of many ages and cultures. We'll be updating a moderation framework to review your conduct in its entirety when evaluating if the intent is to be sexually suggestive. We'll be looking at contextual elements such as the stream title, camera angles, emotes, panels, attire, overlays, I don't have that many fingers, and chat moderation, offering access to prohibited sexual content such as lewds on Twitch, which are basically just like slutty pictures that girls will like send, or like they have like Patreon where they'll like have a link to their Patreon and it's like, yeah, if you give me like $10 a month, you get these like like slutty pictures of me or something like that are like bikini pictures or lingerie pictures or something like that, which is prohibited on Twitch. A lot of these decisions and everything like this is it's all based off of advertising, right? Advertisers. Imagine if like the BBC or imagine if CNN did like an expose on Twitch and they saw that a lot of kids were watching streams that the majority public viewed was sexual. Well, then that would make a lot of advertisers less likely to advertise on Twitch because it's bringing a lot of negative attention to Twitch. I don't think Twitch really cares one way or another, and I don't really care either. I used to, but now I don't. I just don't. I don't know why. I guess I have more important things to worry about nowadays, but they're doing it for advertisers. That's why. That's what's driving all of this. Also, attire and gaming streams, most at-home streams, and all profile channel imagery should be appropriate for public street, mall, or restaurant. As a reminder, we will not tolerate using this policy as a basis to harass streamers on or off Twitch, regardless of whether you think they're breaking this rule, which is another like harassment. Like, I mean, I dislike the whole idea of vigilante justice, and so this change that they're making here is actually probably not going to be that big of a change. It's not like, I don't think that this change, it's like, oh wow, Twitch is going to ban all the boob streamers or something like that. I don't think that they're going to do that. They might ban a couple of like really extreme offenders, but they might not even do that. I don't really think that they're going to do a whole lot. There's really no use in them doing that unless those people stand to hurt or harm the website. and that's ultimately what's important to them. Anti-harassment and hateful conduct will now be considered. We will now. This is very important here. Additionally, we will now consider verifiable hateful or harassing conduct that takes place off Twitch when making moderation decisions for actions that occur on Twitch. If you use other services to direct hate or harassment towards someone on Twitch, we will consider it a violation of Twitch's policies. So, in regards to that, I think that it's a double-edged sword, right? Do I want Twitch trying to monitor and micromanage and work out every single internet interaction between their broadcasters? I feel like that's a waste of time, personally, and there are some extremes, right? So if you have somebody that's like directing like this huge Twitter hate mob, and at like one broadcaster, and the other guy's a broadcaster too, of course you've got to put your foot down on that, right? I mean, you've got to protect like your employees to a certain extent, which is effectively what people are if they're streaming on Twitch, even though they're not technically employees. They're still people that Twitch is kind of responsible for and making sure those people are happy. And I don't really see the purpose in allowing somebody who's one streamer to direct a bunch of hate or harassment to another streamer, regardless of the platform. I don't really see how that's going to add any sort of value. But I do think that there's a very big difference between hate and criticism. So an example of this is Athene's cryptocurrency thing. So Athene's cryptocurrency thing was widely regarded as being completely fake and also very predatory. And it was something that was basically, it could have been fraud. I don't really know, but it could have been fraud. A lot of people that were streamers spoke up about it. I think it's a very different thing to say that Athene is potentially running a fraudulent cryptocurrency scam on Twitch and he should be banned, and talking about that on Twitter. That's a very big difference than saying X streamer is a whore or X streamer looks like a goblin, he should be banned from Twitch, he's fucking disgusting, right? One of them is a criticism of actions, and another one is a criticism of an individual or somebody's character. And I think that one of them is okay and the other one is not. So it's very important that Twitch doesn't prevent any sort of criticism. It's okay that they can prevent some, but in terms of professional criticism, I feel like that should be completely okay, and it actually makes the website better. That being said, legitimate harassment, I don't really think there's no value to that. It doesn't make Twitch better, and I think that's what all of these changes kind of come down to. Do these changes make Twitch better? I don't really know. I think Twitch is in a very, very precarious position that many of the people on their website have fostered communities that have been, in a lot of ways, or at least regarded by advertisers at least, as being toxic, as being maybe racist, as being sexist, or something like that. And Twitch is in a very precarious position with how they're going to deal with those communities. Are they going to deal with those communities by banning them and alienating the people that made them successful? Are they going to try to moderate them? What are they really going to do? And I think that what they can't do, the worst thing that they can do, is find themselves at odds with their own community. Twitch has built this community. This community is a reflection on Twitch. And if they want to pretend like this isn't because of them, I don't really know what to say. I mean, the streamers and everything like that have been created by Twitch and all of that. They can say like, yeah, we don't want to be part of this and this isn't what we're about. But whenever some of the most popular streams have those elements in them, it's very clear that a large majority of their audience shares these opinions that many people at Twitch themselves would consider problematic. It puts themselves in a very weird position there. And that's why, again, these changes do make me nervous, and I hope that they're able to arbitrate them in a more fair way. Let's go ahead and look at some of the other stuff. This is something else that I wanted to talk about. This is probably the last thing that I wanted to talk about as like a big issue, is streamers being responsible. God damn. Oh my god, I sat there for too long. Streamers being responsible for their own chat and actions of their viewers. Now, I think that at a certain point, like the way that I do it is that if people start talking shit about other streamers in my stream, I usually just time them out because they have like some sort of an agenda and everything like that. I've never really seen any streamer get a bunch of like just universal hate unless the streamer themselves is kind of encouraging it or permitting it, or like, haha, guys, let's not do that anymore, and then they're laughing at the same time, right? So they're kind of like, obviously, but not directly promoting it. So the way that I look at that is that it's a very, very dangerous position, again, for them to take, to make a streamer responsible for somebody else. Ultimately, unless you're telling somebody, yeah, go harass this person, uh, I don't really think that you should be held responsible or liable for other people's actions just in a general sense. So I hope that that's not what happens, right? I hope that's not what happens. And I think that it's really only going to be used for very, very extreme examples. And they're really probably just trying to tell people, like, oh, fuck. They're probably really just trying to tell people, to try to, like, ban racist stuff and things like that. At that point, I don't really know, like, are streamers responsible for what other members on their website say? Should Twitch try to deal with that instead of the streamer? I feel like it's kind of like offsetting responsibility. Streamers are personally responsible for that, but I don't think that the streamers should be held accountable for what their chat says. Now, if their chat is just a complete cesspool and it's like an incubator for people that hate on like another streamer, right? So like, let's say like, like me and let's see, like what's like one of my friends, like me and Mitch Jones, right, or me and Trainwreck. Like let's say me and Trainwreck, for whatever reason, like don't like each other, right? Things turned out a different way, and everybody on my stream hates Trainwreck, and everybody says a bunch of bad stuff about him on my stream all the time, and then that carries over into his stream, and then he gets harassed by it because of all the people that's like incubating in my stream. Is that my responsibility to fix that? I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on how much influence the streamer has on that, and if they're making a conscious effort to say, like, yeah, don't say that, keep, like, don't have, I don't want to have anything to do with that, or at least not talking about it at all. I think that it's really not their responsibility, but it's like with everything, there are extremes for all of these different rules where they would make sense, and there are also extremes for the rules where they would absolutely not make sense. And the way I want to close this video is that the way people are going to approach them and the way that these rules will affect Twitch will be based off of the way that they're enforced. If they're trying to cut down on, like, I don't know, politically incorrect humor, I think it's a community unfriendly decision to make, right? I think a lot of people like that kind of stuff. That's why they're going and they're watching streamers that are doing that kind of stuff. If Twitch says, yeah, that's not what we want on our website, people will find somewhere else to go. And ultimately, I don't think that will be a net positive for the community. If they're doing it to cut down on legitimate harassment, then it will be. I think that time will tell, but at the end of the day, I don't think these rules are so much new, but they're more or less clarifications. So that's what I have to say. Sorry if this video was a little bit long. I'm kind of passionate about the subject. I really care about like internet communities and internet culture, I guess, to an extent, and I want to see things go in the best way possible. And I care a lot about Twitch and all this kind of stuff. So this is my opinion. This is where I'm coming from, and that's about it. So thanks for watching. Peace.